go to YouTube and get the link. So if you just joined us, you're watching the pre-show to Ask the Podcast Coach, and we'll be starting in about a minute and a half.
A little behind. Oh, I should have clicked on that. Dang it.
He's like 3 inches between the fence slats while a person
watching last week's show.
Oh, that's you. I'm like, wait, I just shut me up. What is that?
Isn't that funny? Let's see.
But the other thing that's just freaky is August is done.
I know.
I mean, last night I turned off the air conditioning. I'm like, really? Is it that time already? I was like, that went quick. There is a book I'm reading called Story Air Conditioning. I'm like, really? There is a.
Oh, you're hearing it because I have my USB pass through. That's why.
Yeah, I'm like, there's me again.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I'm reading this book called Storyworthy.
So you started YouTube as well.
I did start YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, everything should be going at this point.
Yeah.
Link to join. Ask the podcast coach. There we go. That's that. We need.
I am used to you normally holding YouTube till the very end, but
no, it's when you go live on this thing. We're live everywhere now. So, and in theory now, if everybody goes to askthepodcastcoach.com/live, and I don't need me, and yeah, we should be good to go. We probably have people in the chat room. Yep. All right. So the other thing I need there. Oh, beautiful. I need the chat. So I'm starting my restream chat. I'll be interested to see how StreamYard reacts to our requests of being able to actually, you already pointed out I can solo you. I didn't know we could do that in the past, but I can now see.
I think Ross was telling me there's a few more improvements coming. So in the next whenever they release, we should see a few more things coming.
All right. And last but not least, I need a pen. And wow. It again, it's always a great barometer. The messier my desk, the busier I just got too much stuff going on. Right.
Yeah, I know we talk about that a little bit.
I'm really looking forward to having this next I'm really looking forward for September to be over. September's not going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it is. That's the weird thing. It is going to be fun, but
hectic
theory,
let's get ready to podcast.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's light this candle. Wait, let's do this. And we'll do that. And we'll do this. Actually, let's do that. All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's weird because I don't have to click. Oh, I have to hit record on this, though. See? Ask the podcast coach for August 31st, 2019.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that fun-filled music that means it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there from the average, that's not it, that one, the average guy.tv. Too many things going on. The one and only Jim Cullison. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. It's the last day of August. When's it going to slow down? So you were mentioning pre-show. September's a busy month. Me too. It just seems like September, like everybody saves everything for the summer in September, and people wake up and they're like, oh, we got to get some work done. The end of the year is almost here. So I know you're feeling it. I am too. Do you find you make more mistakes when the busier you get? You start making more mistakes?
If you could see my desk right now, it's after it was pretty clear at the end of July, it's just a mess. And I find myself like, oh, I thought I already booked my hotel, or I thought I already, and you look up and you're like, oh, wait, no, I did. Oh, what? Or just little things that just drive you nuts. And that's what happens is you start to lose faith in yourself. Like, wait, if I miss this, like and then you start double checking everything you need to do. Like today it dawned on me, I have to do, like, I'm gone. I think I leave Tuesday next week and I don't come back till I think Wednesday. So like I'm gone a full week. And I think Podcast Movement, I was gone like 5 days. And so now it dawns on me, like, well, you better do laundry, buddy, because that's a lot of clothes you're dragging to Washington, D.C. and things like that. So it's just little things that kind of throw you off your game. And I'm in the process of, I've got 2 presentations. Now, here's the good news. And this is where I was like, is I'm going to 2 events next week. I'm going to FinCon, and then in the same hotel, I go to the Military Influencer Conference, and I'm doing the same presentation. That's the one where I was like, kind of a podcasting 101 for your business. And then the other thing is I have to write 30,000 words by the end of September, because I've got about 22,000 and they want 50,000 for my book. And I was like, that's doable, but holy cow, I have to clear my schedule. And then it dawned on me, wait, I'm off on Monday. And that's when I was like, 8 hours of just closing the windows, locking the doors, turning off email and Gmail and everything else, and just getting everything that's in my head. I'm done with research. I just got to get it out of my head. So I don't know. How about you, Jim? You get a little messy when things get crazy?
I do. I was I was just commenting to you. This weekend in posting my podcast, and I did a recording. I took on a client briefly to do some work for them. So a little bit more podcasting than normal stuff going on. Work has been kind of helter skelter with the work of podcasting. Not quite the right schedule, or the schedule's changed a little bit. And I just found myself making a lot of mistakes. And you're like, have to go back, fix them, whatever. And it's just, I was kind of wondering, I'm like, why? Why do those busy times cause you to be that way? And what are some good strategies to kind of get out of that funk? I mean, it's like, do you stop, get away, come back to it? Do you start saying no to things? I mean, I don't know if we necessarily want to dive into that, but I think there's those times in the work that we do, and you just get, it's tired, or you get, I don't know what it is, but you start making massive mistakes. Don't record something, release something with only one side of the conversation on it. Right. I mean, those kinds of things.
That was so weird. Normally I can look back. Last week I put out this show. It was fine to the patrons, but the one that went out to the public, and what was weird, because normally I can go back and go, I had a channel muted or something like that. Because all I did is I exported the full 90 minutes to the patrons, and then I went back and chopped off the 30 minutes, did nothing else. Exported it, and for some reason Jim's side of the conversation was MIA, and I was like, what? So yeah, but that's one where, again, I swear every time I don't listen to it, and what I actually did listen to it, but I didn't listen for you. I heard Ask the Podcast Coach, I heard me start, I heard the music, and I'm like, yep, it's fine. Didn't even think about it.
That's all I would have done, to be honest.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have gone.
I was like, yeah, so that was kind of like, the good news is your audience will always let you know when you mess up, which is,
they let me know, which was weird. Yeah. Somebody's like, hey, Jim, can you tell Dave I don't have his contact info, and so I pinged you, and it was like,
well, my favorite thing is I had it, I'm at that point, because I'm trying to, again, do everything. So I'm out on my bike. I load up the bike, the minute those were done, load up the bike, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere, probably a good 15, 20 minutes from my house. And I'm listening to podcasts about podcasting, and on comes Ask the Podcast Coach. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where's Jim's voice? And then about that time, bing, hey, Dave, do you know that? And then about 3 minutes later, Jim's like, hey, just so you know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way back. So that's always fun. But yeah, Mark Mason has a great point. He says it's a good idea to look at the show. You look at the file, open up the WAV file, because if there's something missing, it's going to be really obvious. That's a great tip.
I never see that WAV file in my workflow. So, well, maybe when it comes out of Audacity, or not Audacity, Auphonic, maybe that's where I would look. Otherwise, I don't. Well, yeah, no, I guess I do see it when I just pull mine down from YouTube and chances are it's going to be both sides there, or this is why I never have this problem, because everything has to be there. You record differently, right? You do different things in different ways. I'm always using the YouTube video, the audio from the video to pull it.
Yeah.
So I would never run into that problem, I guess.
And the chat room, of course, we're out at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. If you want to, depending on where you're at, if you're like, what this chat room, although I can see all of the chats, but if you want to jump on board, you can just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. And the chat room is all excited because a lot of them are going to MapCon, which is coming up as well. This is the first time I won't be there. We're actually pondering, myself and Chris Kermitzos are pondering doing a road trip from DC up to Atlantic City, which is like a 3-hour drive. And I'm like, that reminds me of when I was in a long distance relationship, driving an hour to spend 20 minutes and then driving an hour back. Like this would be, I think somebody said it's like 3 hours. So we would get there, stay an hour if we're lucky, like an after party kind of thing, and then drive back to DC. And I'm like, I'm not. That's a lot of.
That sounds fun.
It does sound fun, and then it's really, I miss MapCon. I can't believe, and I had already given my approval to speak at the military influencer conference, and when MapCon came up, I was like, oh, I can't, So it should be. It's a very intimate kind of gathering.
How many?
100 tops.
Oh, yeah. That is small. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I love about it is it's single track. So everybody's going through the same stuff. It does some things that are very creative. Like there's some improv in it where you make up a podcast on the spot, which for me, that's the part I'm not crazy about, because improv is usually pretty bad, and it is pretty bad. But I then talked to the people that participated, and so many of them are like, I was so glad I did this. This pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I get why they do it. I just don't want to watch it. But it's interesting to see what people do and things like that. But Mark says in the chat room, might be an opportunity for some software there. Imagining a machine learning tool that listen to your show and look for problems. That's got to be on the way. I see more and more. There's in fact, Dave has the link in his Trello. There is a software, he said, waiting for it to load, called, and it's like Spext. What a weird it's like Descript, which I think we've all kind of heard of, where you edit the text and it edits the audio. And this is something that was on Product Hunt. And I'm going to throw this in the chat room and pray that it goes to everybody. But it's just SPEXT, I believe, is the .co, spext.co. And it's one of those things where when you delete the audio version, when you delete the
text version,
it does the audio. So eventually you think it'd be cool if you said, hey, this is an like a dog, you know what I mean? Here's the go boy, get him, go fetch the and get rid of them. So I did a thing for me and Eric. We just did a podcast review show, and I cut out all of our and put them together, and it's literally like a 2-minute file of us just going well, it's kind of like I almost want to take those. I thought maybe for Christmas it'd be fun to like make jingle bells out of like it was like, I'm like, I gotta do something.
You could auto tune them though. It'd be easier to auto tune them and do it that way,
because there were a ton of them. But I think that's in the future. I think somewhere eventually somebody's going to figure that out. And the hard part's going to be is, there are some words that have the word in it. I'm trying to think of what maybe not, but so that was, I'm sure that's coming down the pike where, artificial intelligence and machine learning and any other buzz phrase you want to throw in there.
Yeah, I think it has to get better. I mean, when we think and look at what it's doing, and like Otter, so now they can get pretty good transcriptions. This morning, I woke up early and I hadn't done my transcriptions yet. So I dropped them into Otter, last night, and was working on them. And I noticed already, with Otter, I have the paid plan, so you can put in certain words like Home Gadget Geeks. I want that to capitalize it every time, and so you can kind of train the transcription to be able to go in there and change those for me. So I did that, and sorry, I'm so distracted. I cannot believe how many people are trying to talk to me right now on Facebook. Like, I seriously can. It every minute or every 10 seconds, it's going ding, ding, and I'm like, guys, it's Saturday morning. Stop talking to me.
Yeah, well, that reminds me. I should silence my phone before it goes off.
Things off for sure. But so the transcription part is getting better. The fact that we can kind of train the file to get the text output the way we want it is pretty cool. I would imagine once we can start to figure out and get really good voice print. In other words, what it knows when I'm talking versus when you're talking. Otter does some of that as well. And then that bit or or whatever, where it recognizes, it makes a value on that and starts predicting and pulling that out. That could be really cool. I just did a audio I just did right there. I just did an audio edit on Friday that I was doing, and the gal who spoke, she spoke for about 15 minutes, 2 in the whole thing. I was like,
nice.
It's pretty great to be able to do that. Not most of us aren't that way, especially on these live shows. A lot of us aren't that way. Otter does a really good job of taking out of the transcript. Yeah.
That's
very
nice.
good job.
Yeah.
Very good job.
Otter.ai is another thing that is going to save me, because I have to write about 30,000 words in about 30 days to get my book to the to get the final manuscript to these people. And I was like, how am I going to do that? And number one, I lucked out. I have Monday off. And then number two is I took all these interviews, and this is where, in my case, the Mix Pre, or if you're using the Rodecaster Pro, we can talk about that in a bit. It had some updates. Is I'm able to take just the track of the guest. I don't need the questions. I need the answers. So I'm uploading just the guest track of them telling me, because I just want their answers. Mm-hmm. And then taking that, throwing it into the book, making it readable. And boy, that it's like I typed like 3,000 words in next to nothing, because I was interviewing Jonathan Oakes from Trivia Warfare, who is the guy just spews tips about Patreon. Like, he has Trivia Warfare Army is the name of his we have our awesome supporters. See, I should go buy awesomesupporters.com. And then he has things like Trivia Warfare Army. And then if you're at the such and such level, you're private. If you're at the $5 level, you're a colonel. If you're at the $50, it was just, everything was really, really kind of cool. So
it's a lot of work. I mean,
it is a lot of work.
That you shouldn't do that. But he has a full-time job too, right?
Yeah, he has a full-time job. And we were both laughing on how we were both trying to lose weight, and both will lose weight and then both will find weight. And so he said, yeah, and he's got a kid. So throw on top of that he has his kid every other day, so he's dropping off kids to school, and he's got a really nice day job. And he does he has his main show, Trivia Warfare, and they had all these patrons sign up, and there wasn't enough shows for people to appear on, because he found out that's what what people want. They want to be on the show and play trivia. Yeah. So he created other shows, little baby 5-minute quiz shows for people to come on. And so that way, yeah, because there's one level, it's like you're in the pool, and then there's another level you will get on within a year. And then if you're at another level, you will definitely get on. The more you pledge, the quicker you're on. And so it's pretty interesting. So
awesomesupporters.com is available, by the way, if you're gonna
you
might want to buy it by the end of the show.
Yeah. Somebody's gonna buy it and sell it to me for $500. Yeah. And the chat room is saying you can mute your
I know. Facebook. It's just it had been quiet. And the second I started talking to you, they're cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. They just kept popping in. And now again, I'm talking, and again, they're popping in. Some of it, it'll go away here in just a second. And my wife is out, and so I like to kind of keep those notifications open. But it's a lot of work. I mean, we talked, so Ross was on my show on Thursday. We talked a little bit about YouTube branding, and I've been working with Steve Sleeper a little bit. He's been giving me some hints and some clues on maybe how to run my YouTube channel a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's just as I think about these things, I'm like, I could literally spend all day Saturday milking out content, putting things into smaller bites, coming up with better titles, figuring out the tags better, doing the searches to see what people are looking for. And I just like, I can't do it. I can't spend that much time.
And then working on your thumbnail, because the thumbnail is always important. And
that thumbnail art now has gotten kind of crazy. And, I didn't realize how important it was. Yeah. And so, and then I was like, so on the show, Mike Weger, my co-host, says, like, Jim, I think you're thinking about this all wrong. Like, you drive a community show. Your goal necessarily isn't to be, now everybody's job is to be really discoverable on YouTube, but I have an hour and 20-minute show. That's not really, like, the second someone clicks on it and sees how long it's going to be, or in some cases it shows the timestamp in the video when, in the recommendation box, whatever. Nobody's going to click on a video that long. It's just, they're not gonna. They're only coming there for certain reasons because they're connected to the show and they want to watch it in that way. If I wanted to spend some time and break those down into smaller chunks, smaller consumable chunks, that might work to really game the YouTube system and get maximum results. And I could do that and then put end cards in them to drive them over to the big, right. You're okay. That's Saturday. That's all Saturday. Like, it takes the whole day.
The more I dig into SEO, the more I'm like, I now see why people, like, that's all they do. Because about the minute you think you got it handled, there's a new thing. And I also now see why every day I open up my inbox and somebody wants me to link to an article they wrote and blah, blah, blah. But the one thing about Patreon, here's something I should have had. Do I have any big announcement music? No, I do not have anything. All I have is Ryan saying,
no one will punch you in the face.
So if I was worried about announcing this, nobody's going to punch. I thought of this because here's the thing, and I'm seeing this more and more where people start a Patreon, typically, by the way, years after they launch their podcast, or a year or months. But anyway, and they think nobody's gonna contribute. Nobody's gonna, who's gonna give me $10? Nobody. And then you find out later, holy cow, more people than I thought. And so right now we're right at the edge where once a month I felt bad because, $20 a month, I will say your name in every podcast, and we'll do that a little later. But I kind of felt bad for the other patrons because they never get mentioned. So I said, hey, you know what? At the beginning of the month, we'll mention everybody, which is fine, except it then dawned on me that, as we get more and more people, that is now probably a 5 to 10 minute spot, even though I'm just saying Jim Collison from the averageguy.tv, Steve from blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and it's not so what I'm going to do starting in 2020. So I'm giving everybody a great heads up here. We're just going to stick with the $20 people, but when you join, so if you join for $1, I will make a huge deal that you have joined and maybe play a part of your podcast or something like that. I'm like, that makes sense. That's manageable. That's a big deal. But I can't, I'm like, if I keep doing this, and I'm excited every time somebody joins, but all of a sudden it's going to be, hey, welcome to Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions live. Hey, it's the first question of the month. So let's talk about, Abe and Steve and Jill and Karen and blah. And it's kind of like 20 minutes of me reading names. And I'm like, that doesn't scale well. So I thought about that. I'm like, that's what I should do. And as I talk to more people with patrons, they go, oh yeah, we just make a big deal when they join. I'm like, oh, why did I think of that? So
yeah, kind of just depends on your, what your time is to be able to do this with. And I think you do want to think through those promotions, but you don't know what you don't know. So you got to try them. Yeah. And I think people understand on Patreon when you change some things,
Yeah. Yeah. The Mike asked a great question. It also doesn't work when people are listening to your podcast. Oh, wait a minute. But here's the fun thing about the chat. I go to click on it right when somebody says something and I moved.
Yeah.
What's to prevent someone from joining every other month? Well, then we'll just have to politely go, hey, didn't you join like back in January and now it's March? And
for every system, there's a way to game the system.
Yeah. So, Yeah, and then Emily says, "How long is No Agenda's list of supporters?" I listened once and it kept going forever. Yeah, I know when I get to that part. And here's what I'm starting to notice with No Agenda. Find them at noagendashow.com. Great podcast. They do 2 segments. One at the beginning for anybody who gave $250 or more. That's their associate producer, and then they do $50 or more later. And I'm finding that when they go to the $50 or more, that list goes on quite a bit, and I am finding that because I fast forward every time, unless it's me, I'm like, "Ooh, are they going to say my name?" So I'll go skip, and then I notice that like they'll do another. It doesn't seem like very much. Like their second segment is pretty short, and then they do their end clip, and I'm kind of like, But yeah, they do that. Now the only thing that they do that's kind of fun is they is John C. Dvorak he doesn't like to, he just does. He butchers people's names and countries. So Adam will let him do that. And usually they have weird sound effects. So like, hey, can you do me a goat karma? And then I didn't realize Reverend Sharpton I think he's on CNN or CNBC or whatever. That guy can't talk. Like he does verbal typos. I'm one to talk. But it's like he just really mispronounces words a lot. And they have all these great clips. So people will request it. So they kind of make it somewhat entertaining. But yeah, and then Mr. Bologna here says patron tracks all of that. Join, drop. We just announced 5 new members each show. It takes 20 seconds. There we go. And then Mike says, yep, Patreon is a living experience and it is going to change. And what else do we have here in the chat room? Here's another one we should do. And this is why I don't know why I'm not doing this. Patron supporters also get their questions moved to the top of the list. I should put that out every week. I should ask the patrons any questions ask the podcast coach tomorrow. And that would be a good thing too.
Do for this show too, where you get priority moved up front. That's just I don't know. Maybe I'm just not good at that, of keeping track of all those details like that. Some people are better at it than me. But I certainly can't do it very well.
Well, and you said it. It's like it's a lot of work. I was talking to a guy yesterday who has a pretty good, successful podcast going, and he was thinking of starting a second one. And I said, "Why?" I go, "Why are we doing that?" And he's like, "Well, I kind of like to talk about this too." And I said, "Well, I go, you're free to do whatever you want." I go, "Just realize it's you have to promote that show as well. You have to, there's only 24 hours in a day." And it's just one of those things. I'm like, I told him, I said, he says, "Well, how many shows do you have?" I go, "About podcasting, 4. And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." And I said, "Most of those were started as tests or things like that." And I said, "Then there are days," I said, "not that I don't like doing the shows." I said, "But there are days I always wonder, how good would the School of Podcasting be if I took all the time I spent on I spent a good 4 hours easy, if not 6, on Ask the Podcast Coach." And some of the other ones, the Podcast Radio Show was one. It's a 5-minute show, but it still takes me a half hour to do. And I'm like, if I was taking that time to promote the School of Podcasting, so think twice about starting a multiple show. It's hard to not do. Jim, how many do you have now? 2?
2 for the Average Guy Network are 2. Yeah. But the second one is only every 5 or 6 weeks. So it doesn't take a ton of time. There's just other things. I don't know about you, but I'm not driven ever. So every night I come home and there's some things I try to get done while I'm sitting here at the desk, but you need a break. Like, you can't, I could be more productive if I just, but there are some nights I come home and I'm like, no, I don't want to split a YouTube video into.
Please don't do that.
I don't want to. No, it's fine. I don't. Yeah, don't do that. That's exactly the way I feel. That was actually a really good soundbite for that. I don't want to split a YouTube video into segments and re-render them and post them up and optimize them. I get, I just get a little nutso on the optimization pieces. So a whole night will go by, and I probably blew 2 hours. I could have been doing something, but I don't want to. There's also that element of when you create a new podcasts, it's different. Like, if you only spent time on School of Podcasting, would you really spend all that time on School of Podcasting? That gets a little, because these things come around every week. And so you're like, I just released this one and I spent all weekend advertising for it. And now it's Monday. Hello. And then, so all of a sudden it's Thursday again. And now I'm spending all weekend advertising for Home Gadget Geeks. I don't think it's healthy. Now, some people can do it. I don't know how you do, but I don't think it's healthy to drive yourself that hard on some of these things.
Well, and that's where you're talking earlier, like, what do we do? I've been, because I am trying to lose weight, and I do, and then I don't. That's the problem. But for like 2 weeks ago, I lost weight every single day because I was like Fred Flintstone. When that whistle blew, I went out, grabbed my bike, threw it on the back of my car, drove about 7 minutes to a really cool bike path, biked 5-10 miles, came back, ate dinner, and then did computer stuff. And in my head, I was always like, I don't know if I should be doing this because that's another hour I could be. And I'm like, you know what? I'm one of those guys, and Jim, you might be this too. The tighter the whatever, the more stressed out I am, or the less time I have, the more I got to hunker down and get it done. The more I hunker down and get it done. Whereas, like on Sunday, I do the School of Podcasting, and I started at like 1 o'clock. And I always finish about 11:30, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if because there are sometimes I'll go to my brother's house and I'll hang out with my nieces and nephews, and I'll get back home and I'm like, oh man, it's 8 o'clock. I haven't even started the School of Podcasting. What do you know? It got done at 11:30. So
Yeah.
Sometimes I just think, so I just said, well, wait, let's put things in priority. And so what I've been trying to do, because I realized that, like, look, I'm going to get squeezed really hard in September. So I'm making sure to go to bed. Like when the woman in the tube says, Dave, you should probably go to bed. I'm like, you know what? That's probably a good idea. And I'm trying to exercise just because if the body falls apart, it doesn't matter how many hours you have. So
You got to take care of yourself. Emily in the chat room says one of my editing clients has her VA, virtual assistant, take care of her Patreon. That's probably the best way to use some of that Patreon money, hiring someone to handle Patreon for you. Okay, so actually this is a really good point in that oftentimes we have that money come in. I don't know how we spend it, but we do. And to Emily's point, so say you're making $100 a month on Patreon, hiring a VA to extend out the Patreon. So yeah, you don't see that $100 right away, but it might give you $200 in value. That takes Patreon from 100 to 200. Then you could pay that VA $200 a month to do even more for you. And eventually it'll start spilling over the top, right? It'll start spilling over in a way, or you can pull your VA's hours back to the point where it's just sustaining. And then some of that money starts flowing in over the top where you can start using it for other things. Emily, that's actually a really great idea. And I think a good point to remember, sometimes as YouTubers and podcasters, we get so tight around some of these things of like, I just can't pay. Well, the way business goes, businesses, when somebody opens a Starbucks, they didn't open it for free. It wasn't like, oh, I'm opening up a free Starbucks and I hope this thing takes off. I mean, it costs money to get those things rolling, right? And I think sometimes in podcasting, we need to probably do a better job of reinvesting the money we do make, reinvesting it back into the infrastructure to do more things rather than just paying for services. I don't know. Your thoughts, Dave?
Well, yeah, Mark here says one of his takeaways from Podcast Movement was to look at automation and try to offload things. Yeah. Mike in the chat room says, I'm using a thing called Story Chief. I have Story Chief. I don't use it much, but it is pretty cool. If you check out schoolofpodcasting.com/storychief, you basically write a blog post in Story Chief, and then you put in, here's my WordPress site, here's this, and it just posts it everywhere. But it somehow does, and I want to say the word is canonical or something, some sort of link so that Google knows that your website is the main one and it's not duplicate content and things like that. But in terms of, what was your original point? Emily export. Last week. Yeah. Knowing again that I'm getting, I knew like last week that things are getting a little messy and things like that. So I've had Emily edit my stuff. Emily's a great editor. I've had John Buchanan. And so I'm always trying I always try new stuff. I forget the name of the company, but they're much cheaper. And I was like, because I know people are going to say, well, what about these guys? They're cheap. So I went to them. It was really weird because they have this whole, which any editor has to have an onboarding process. And they're like, it's, do this. And they share a Google Drive with you. And I'm like, where are the special instructions? Because I said, here's what I want. because it's like, here, upload your music and do this, and they put it all together. And I'm like, no, I just need this de-ummed. I just de-um it. I will edit the volume and the music. I'm like, I just need it de-ummed. And actually, they did I forget the name of the company, something like something Press, based out of, they say they're based out of St. Louis. I met him at Podcast Movement, but that was when it was $60. So I'm actually losing money on the podcast review show because I make $50 and I spent 60 on getting it edited. So it's like, oops. But on the other hand, last night, same show, podcast review show. And the way, you know how when you edit things, if you have two people on Skype or whatever, and we live stream that, so we can't use Squadcast. And so Eric and my guest are on the same one. And we always tell them, can you please be in a quiet place? Because on one hand, it is podcasters, but I'm like, can you please be in a quiet place with the best microphone you can, get your hands on? Well, she was on the road and she had an off-brand headset, like earbuds, and literally sound like she was talking like this. And Eric's got an ATR 2100. It's crystal clear. And so I guess I could have pawned that off and said, hey, because here's what I had to do. I took that one track, and then anytime she talked, and this was the good side of it, is anytime she talked, she was leaving a comment about something that we had commented on. So it wasn't like there was a lot of back and forth, but every time she talked, I would cut out her part and drag it down to another track that had a different EQ, because it took out the bass and the mid and really had to boost her highs because there was no high end on it. And it took me an hour and a half to edit a 45-minute audio track. And that's where I was like, So that's where I think sometimes the more planning you do, the less editing you have to do. And that one is just like, you kind of you do a armchair quarterback. And I'm like, maybe I should have, when I saw that, because I knew up front, I'm like, oh crap, her audio just sucks. And I could have said, hey, let's go to Squadcast, and then I'll record it with Camtasia to get the video or something. Cause I knew, I was like, oh, this is going to take a huge amount of time. And I guess I could have contacted, John or Emily and said, hey, here's what you have to do this, because it just took a lot of time. And I was like, that's no fun.
Well, that's the hard part of these services that you purchase. The ROI, it's not like dollar for dollar ROI. And it's tough giving up your file to somebody and paying them $50, $60, $100.
Yeah.
For editing, and think, okay, is that worth my time? Is that worth the time? By the way, Emily, John, it totally is. And there's people who aren't good at editing. I'm not questioning that. Just as the person paying sometimes for whatever these services are, whatever they happen to be, it's not always super clear the ROI you're going to get. And so it's hard sometimes to let go of money to get some of these things done, to say, yeah, is it going to be worth my time? I am a huge automation fan. And so I have automated everything I can that I know how to get my posting as smooth and as efficient as possible. And I do a lot in a short period of time. Could I VA some of that stuff out? I probably could. And now, here's the question. What would I actually do with that extra time? Would I actually do something different? That's the real question. Or would I put my feet up on the desk, put my head back on the chair, and take a nap while somebody, because that happens too.
Well, that's, I've been doing that a lot, especially this last month, where I call them involuntary naps, where I now set and it has to do with food. A lot of times I set an alarm now when it's time for me to go back to work at Libsyn, because I'll go downstairs, eat lunch, and I'm in a nice comfy chair. And next thing I know, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, that's, again, just little warning signs says, hey, maybe you should be getting some more sleep. But Emily says some of the editors actually outsource the umming part, and then they do the rest. Yeah. Nobody likes going through the ums. That's the part I hate. And then Mike says, going back to Story Chief, the feature augments are really impressive for the cost. And yet I think it's $10 a month. Also many tentacles to many things. And you can actually see how many times your article was on. Like, I could actually put my podcast out in Story Chief, and it would go out to Medium. It would go out to, Tumblr and all these other blogging platforms and things like that. So
You just mentioned two platforms. For some reason, Tumblr
Right.
has gotten so many questions in the media lately. I
yeah,
didn't hear about Tumblr for a while. Apparently, so I was talking to my daughter about something yesterday, and apparently Taylor Swift is still posting on Tumblr because she knows that's where her true fans are. Because like nobody else
Right.
is out there. So if you follow Taylor Swift on Tumblr, you get way better access to her there, or some of the stuff that she does there, than you do in other places. And I was like, really? She's still on Tumblr? But like Medium, I mean, Medium was the hottest thing since sliced bread and peanut butter just last year. And now I hear no one talking about Medium. Now, maybe it's just become a stable platform and there's still a lot of traffic out there, but I don't hear the fervor of Medium
Right.
like I was hearing before.
I've never understood it. Addie says often it takes, basically trial and error to figure out what works best for you. Yeah. Because for me, I never got Medium because why am I driving traffic to somebody's website that's not mine? But I will say this, I think I pay $5 a month to Medium, and they find stories that they think I would want to read and send them to me in email. And I actually do click on those on a fairly regular basis. And then Emily says, in terms of Tumblr, Sarah Warner, great interview with her on Better Podcasting with Stephen and SP. I learned so much more about narrative nonfiction podcasting from that. That was a great episode. She gets fan art for audio drama over at Tumblr. So, and then Jason says, in terms of Medium is hampering posts that include links to Patreon. That's interesting. Because why would you want to make money from? Yeah,
it's a little scary. It's a little scary when okay, that's on these platforms, right? That's censorship. Like,
yeah,
if that's true, I'm not saying it's true, and Jason, but that's kind of censorship. And so, do you really want I get it because it's monetization outside of their network, and they're trying to monetize this platform. I get that, but like, aren't you supposed to be kind of like a platform that allows people to do things? And so that's kind of scary to me.
Well, we've got to. I'll tell you what. Let's do this first.
We have some awesome subscribers.
We do have some awesome subscribers. We should talk about, and then I'm going to talk about what I might be a controversial platform as soon as I find out where Jim went. There he is.
Oh, hello.
I went to I launched PowerPoint, and all of a sudden I was like, where'd he go? But yeah, we are talking about awesome people like Greg from Debt Shepherd. You can find him at debtshepherd.com, where he teaches financial wellness. Glenn the Geek Hebert, who you will hear on this week's School of Podcasting. Find him at horseradionetwork.com. Josh Rivers over at podcastingexperiments.com. He's actually working on a new season all about local podcasting. Max Truscott over at aviationnewstalk.com. Shane from spybrary.com. Carrie Bond from keywestperspective.com/podcast. Hoping that she can still hear us now and is not in the middle. I don't know where Key West is compared to like hurricane country, but
south. Very south.
Yeah. And I'm like, that could be a bad place to be right now. Ronsley down in Australia at Amplify Media Group. Find him at mustamplify.com. Carl White at lifeinthecarolinaspodcast.com. And Kim Craggy at toastmasters101.net. And again, if you'd like to be an awesome supporter, simply go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. Your contributions help Dave pay his tax bills. So Jim said, I don't know where we're spending. Yeah, Jim said, I know what we're spending it on. I do that quarterly tax bill. And I'm like, ooh, I got to pay them that when, who, huh?
Okay. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's one of those where it's like,
please support Dave.
yeah, it's no fun. All right, so here is a platform. If you go to either scaleabout.com, or if you want to go to schoolofpodcasting.com/scaleabout, and here's when I first heard it, I was like, what is the idea is now you can interact with your audience, but charge them for it. And I was like, so I could see, and here's where I see it working. Because it's like, if you want to interact with, it's quick questions. If your audience wants to ask you a quick question, you can do that. And they make it super easy to reply via video. And I was like, okay. And there are people on, like, I have one there. I set one up and I put my podcast rodeo show. I'm like, all right, we'll just throw that on there. And they're like, yeah, you probably don't want to put anything for $5. Most people are going 10 to 15 for like one answer, one response. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll take that off. But I thought it was interesting. But I thought, wait a minute, most podcasters are dying to get any feedback. And now we're going to put up a toll booth. But I don't think this is for the average podcaster. Are you thinking of what I'm thinking? I'm thinking coaches, maybe.
Oh no, this is for famous people. That's what this is. People don't really want they want to hear from famous people. This always comes back to on the Clifton Strengths stuff that I do for Gallup. I can't tell you how many times I get the question, hey, you have a list of famous people that have taken Clifton Strengths? And it's famous people and famous people. I want to hear from famous people. Like, what does that even mean? And how are they different than you? You know, they're not, they have the same problems you do. They struggle with the same things you do. They just made a good movie. That's all they really did. Does that really qualify them to be a spokesperson on anything? I don't know. But these kind of platforms just reek of this, hey, I'm famous and I want a video answer from, I mentioned it earlier, but I want a video answer from Taylor Swift. That would make my day. I'll pay $100 to have Taylor make me my own personal video or whatever that is. So I don't see, could it work for coaches and some of those things or any podcasters? Totally. This totally could if you advertised it and it became a platform. But I don't think people are going to discover me, Dave, not knowing who I am and buy an answer from me. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, when you sign up, because I had the guy that runs it give me a demo and I'm like, all right, it's interesting. It's an interesting concept. And when you go to sign up, it was based on YouTubers, and they're now trying to expand it into podcasters. And when you go over, it's like, not that they require it, but they recommend you have 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm like, I have nowhere near. I finally went over 1,000. I think I'm at like 11 or 1,200, something like that. Yeah. But I'm like, and they said, no, you can still sign up. That's just a recommendation thing. And I was like, oh, okay. But the only thing I could think of, and here's where my dilemma is, on one hand, I do have people that send me an email and they're like, I want to ask you a quick question. And often that quick question, it like, hey, I'm thinking of doing an interview show. What's the best equipment? Well, now I got to write a paragraph that says, are your guests in the same room or not? That quick question requires a lot of time, and I'm not complaining, but that's the whole thing. I could say, hey, I would love to talk to you about that. I need this information. Click here and pay me $10, $15, whatever it is, whatever I want to charge. And I'll answer that via personalized. I want to make sure I want to give you the best information, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. And I was like, okay. So I see that might somewhat, if you're trying to stifle the, can I pick your brain? Can I take you to lunch kind of questions? But on the other hand, sometimes that, can I pick your brain? Can I take you to lunch questions make great episodes? And so that's where I was like, I can see, and maybe that's the thing. If the more famous you are, the more this might make sense.
Well, let me be really clear. This is really designed for famous YouTube people, because you watch somebody on YouTube, there isn't really a good way on YouTube to connect with them. And so this is an opportunity for YouTubers to say, hey, come over to my Scale About page, or however they're going to do that, and you can purchase access to me. You could do that. I mean, you could create a Patreon level to do this as well, where, you know, you say, hey, you know, at $50 or whatever, you can, we'll connect on Zoom, or we'll do that. This just makes it easy because it's all in one place. And theoretically, people could find you here that may not know you. But I think the odds of someone, like, it's funny, when I went there and I clicked on find your favorite creator, you're my very first block all the way to the left. So I don't know how it knew that. And it pretty odd.
Spooky. Yeah,
very spooky. I didn't sign up for the service. It doesn't know who I am. I'm not even logged in. And yet you're the very first one showing up on, if that's that way for everybody. But so I think in those cases, this is kind of an all-in-one platform. They're going to be driven. People coming here are going to be primarily driven from your already existing resources, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube video or a blog or some of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Emily says, I have so many FAQ answers in my text expander. Yep. I have that too. Mike was asking, it says multi-streaming in the description. Yeah, that happens automatically because I'm using the free version of Restream.io. I think if I paid that, they would take that out of that. And Mike also says that 85% of my business my successful business podcasting is without, the questions that he gets. So yeah, that's where I'm kind of like, and that's Steve is saying, why not just make a membership site? Yep. If you want people to be able to get contact with you.
But this is an easy way of not creating a membership site and doing it. Like membership sites, especially in WordPress, can be, you're installing a plugin, you're making sure it's up to date, you're connecting to a payment source. Like they're awful, just to be honest. You could do something like this much easier and get your membership kind of stuff here. Tie this thing into Patreon, and you might, and I'm sure they're charging. What's their charge fee here?
They it's 18%.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's a little more than Patreon, but they handle all the hosting of the video and everything else and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay.
You three time, money, and what's the other one? You pay in time,
money, or quality.
Yeah.
And pick two. Because
and sometimes it's just worth it. I'm not saying this is, by the way, no endorsement here of the scale about, but
yeah, this is just me going, what do you guys think of the idea? I'm not
anyway. But if it is easy, they're going to take a percentage. But
and YouTube now has a membership thing where you can sign up for $5 or $10 and get bonus videos. And Jim is saying no, not ready.
They have missed the boat on that thing. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Mike Wilkerson says, I bought MemberPress stuff. Wow. Super convoluted. The thing is, so many of these membership sites, and I've used them all. The last one I used on WordPress was Digital Access Pass, is you end up with so many people wanting to do different things. Like I remember I think it's still in there. Digital Access Pass has a token system. So like for $5, you get X amount of tokens, and then this class is worth X amount of tokens. And I was like, who wanted that feature? I'm like, let's make getting payment even more like $1 equals 1.5 tokens. And this, it sounds like a ninth grade algebra class. If the, growing your podcast coach is 3 tokens and 1 token equals $0.75, how many dollars does it take? X divided by Y equals, I was like, so a lot of times these membership site things get a little crazy. And then for me, I found, and this is just my opinion, I used to have the School of Podcasting at schoolofpodcasting.com. So I had posts that had to be public and courses that had to be private. And when you logged into the back end of my WordPress, your brain exploded. And so that's when I moved the membership site to the School of Podcasting. And because I say that all the time, just join me at theschoolofpodcasting.com. And I'm like, somebody might actually think that's theschoolofpodcasting.com, not the schoolofpodcasting.com. Yeah. And so I bought that domain, and I use Thinkific right now for that. And I know a lot of people are using Teachable, but membership sites are like Patreon. They take a lot of work. And you've got a lot of like, how do I cancel my account on occasion? And I lost my password, and it says I paid, but I can't get in. There's a lot of little management things that go on with that as well. So
so you have 2 separate WordPress instances then for your.
I got away from WordPress.
Right.
I don't like WordPress. I'm just not running anything that pays my car payment on WordPress, because I've had times when I had the School of Podcasting on WordPress, and that was probably the catalyst of me moving it. Was, you have a plugin that takes a crap on you, and now people can't get in to see their stuff, or, you get the white screen of death. And I love WordPress. I just know that it's like an ex-wife. It can turn on you at any minute. So it's like,
yikes. Not speaking from experience or anything.
No, not at all. Yeah. So I'm just not, and I also found I tried a membership site for my weight loss show, and that was the first time I put the membership separate from the actual site, and it just made it easy because everything on that site was membership. Everything on this site was public. And I was like, man, that makes life easy. So that's, I don't know what it does for me SEO wise, but I just like headache wise, it made a lot of them go away. And so, and then Mike says, there's no question that the plugin game is a total dice throw. Yeah. And that's why I used to listen to WP plugins A to Z, and I kind of had to quit listening because they would always come up with plugins that I would want to load. And I ended up with like,
Mhm.
75 plugins on maybe not quite that many, but a lot. And, I just, the more you add, the more chance that something's going to go,
I've been listening to Think Like a Hacker, right? That's Word
Yeah.
Fence's podcast. Really good. Audio is terrible. I need to mail that guy a microphone. Super great stuff. This is one of those cases where I forgive the audio because the content is just so good.
Yeah.
But there is no regulation for plugins. Like WordPress does its best to kind of regulate them and make sure they're okay. But we just had a situation where we had a bad actor buy 5 or 6 or 7 different plugins, and then when he took them over, she could be a she too. When they took them over, they injected malicious code into them in the next series that went out, and so you have no real way there's no way to stop that, so to speak. Now they can be pulled from the store and some of those kinds of things, and they go, but that doesn't prevent it's an open source, and there aren't really very many gatekeepers. So I think you got to be careful when you're on WordPress. You kind of got to be careful. It makes you want to think about Squarespace or Wix. Sometimes they have all their own problems, but
that's an October thing. I might actually take one of my sites, like I have podcastconsultant.com, and I thought, you know what? I probably should know a little more about Squarespace, but it's so weird because, we all have these stupid membership things that, we're paying, $7 a month for this and $8 a month for that. And for some reason, it'd be about $8 more to host my website. And I'm not going to use them for my podcast. And for some reason, that $8 to Squarespace, for some reason, I can't get over that. I don't want to pay $20 a month for my website when I know I can host it for 10. But I started using, speaking of security, I love WordFence, but just to test it out, because again, I love to play with stuff, I put iThemes security on my weight loss show, and I am amazed at least twice a day it stops somebody from trying to like log into my website. That's not me. It's like, so-and-so has been detected and blocked. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, so that's where I'm like, I'm not really sure. Emily says, iSquarespace, but for the business website and blog, not for the podcast. Yep, that's what I'm thinking of doing, because they do make pretty websites. And I think because they also integrate with Acuity Scheduling, which I use for my my consulting stuff. And because I started to do them once, and if you connected them to PayPal, if you sold something on your website, there were PayPal fees, and then Squarespace wanted a piece of that. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. You're integrating with my PayPal. I shouldn't have to pay you anything for that. That's your job, is to make it easy for me to use my tools. And that's when I was like, it's enough of that.
How much did they want?
It was like nothing huge, like 2%. But I was like, but it was like, it was a principle of the thing. It was me. It was like, how dare you try to charge me 2%? I was like, you shouldn't have to do that. So
we need a "how dare you" soundbite on our how dare you? How
Good
dare
day,
you.
sir. I was listening to some comedians. They said, do you realize that back in the day, good day, sir, was the same as F you?
Yes.
Like, it was just like, you walk out the day, you go to leave, and before you slam the door, good day, sir. That was like F you back in the day. So Kim says, I use both together. So I have a Squarespace. Like when I log back in, they're going to say, hey, your 30-day expired. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Let me get a new email address. Okay, I'm signing up again. And then Mike says he's a WordFence fan. Yeah, I like WordFence. I used them to clean up when I got dirty. I had some sort of malware.
Dave, careful now, Dave. Careful.
Yeah. I have not heard it. There's a new one here. And of course, when I go to click on it, it moved. Yeah. John says, my podcast website is on Webflow. Is really the perfect blend between coding and Squarespace, where you can create anything you imagine. This is not a sponsored post, but I've never heard of Webflow. There are a few coming out that are like the alternative to WordPress. I see that now, because with the whole Gutenberg, there's even, did you know there's now a Classic Press? I know there's a plugin that's kind of,
it'll take it back to the Classic.
Yeah. But there's now a program called Classic Press. I just heard about it on a podcast, but it's kind of like, hey, like the people that are like really wanted that classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, have started something called Classic Press. And I'm like,
A
'Cause
whole
that's-
separate
it's
site,
all-
or
Yeah, somebody Google that. But I was surprised that, isn't that, I know it's under general GPU, whatever the heck that stands for, which means it's basically open code
wow,
and there's a community.
Classic
it exist?
Press. Yeah, classicpress.net is
Yeah.
is what it is. Yeah, you can really tell they're trying to capitalize on the Gutenberg debacle, right?
Yeah.
So they're like Classic Press, the business focused CMS, powerful, versatile, predictable. So
Predictable, nice.
community is first. Like they're really starting to kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, come back, and it is literally just the WordPress instance with the classic theme installed.
Emily says, I have a book of Shakespearean insults. I bite my thumb at you, sir, is one of my favorites.
Yeah, exactly.
JD says, I have a website on Weebly, not a podcast, and I love it. It's only about $100 a year. Yeah, all those are kind of, my whole thing is anytime I've tried a Weebly or Wix or whatever, I always end up wanting to do something that doesn't do. And I'm usually not that crazy with stuff, but Bonnie says, I had Weebly and loved them because they're so grassroots, but my membership site was too big and crashed on it. And so she moved to Kajabi.
Oh, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that is true. So,
man, the chat room is on fire today.
Yeah.
I think feel like we got everybody's back today. I don't know if it's the holiday or what, but it seems like when I think of Kim and Dan and Emily and Addie was in there earlier and Steve, like, guys, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming
Saturday.
back.
It's like the who's who of Ask the Podcast Coach out there today.
And the interesting thing is, it's 11:30.
I know.
I was like, it's time to start fading in the music.
Yeah.
Jim, what's coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. We had Ross Brand on talking about YouTube optimization, and I get super frustrated. So if you want to hear that podcast, head out to theaverageguy.tv. It's posted right now.
You get super frustrated, so we get to hear angry Jim.
Just kind of disgruntled, frustrated. Yeah, I'm a little frustrated with YouTube. So
a little get off my lawn, maybe.
No, just I don't like all these changes that I have to make to be a cool kid on the block. That's what I'm struggling with. So it's just me. Yeah. It's all on me.
And on this week's show, I think I have to do 2 shows this weekend, along with all the other stuff I got going on, because I am going to be gone. Speaking of that, no show next week. I'll be in DC. But on this week's show, I believe I'm going to have Glenn the Geek and Liz Covert from Ben Franklin's World, and of course, Glenn from HorseRadioNetwork.com, talking about the International Podcast Association and what is it and why did it exist and why they create it and what's it going to do in the future and things like that. So that'll be on Monday's show of AskThePodcastCoach.com. But I'm with Jim. Thanks for coming on. The chat room was on fire today. And it's always interesting. I mean, I had a whole Trello board full of stuff, and we talked about one of them.
Post show. So we'll do it in the post show.
Yeah, that's it. So we have 33 seconds. Actually, we have 22 seconds.
A lot longer. I kept blabbing on and blah, blah, blah. Ross also says we talked live streaming and audio, video content and more on the show. So not just YouTube.
Yeah. So stick around in the for some post show in the chat room, and we'll see you next week on Ask the Podcast Coach. And we're back.
Did you say no show next week?
No show next week, and then I said I ended the show by saying "see you next week." And I was like, "Oh, you idiot!"
I just want to make sure that I'm going to take the Saturday off.
Somebody asked about. Boy, man, the chat room has been on fire. But somebody asked about the new. They're like, look, hold on, Jim. If we wait just a second, and yep, there's another new media host. If you go to podcastmediahost.com, I have criteria. And one of my criteria is you have to charge me for it. So when it's livestream.dm, when it's, like I saw a demo. I saw a post. It's Colin Gray did a post on Captivate FM, the new one from Mark and the boys over at Rebel Base Media. And it looks fine. I thought they were going to have something different. And I know they have something in their player with a call to action. Like you might be able to put a link on each episode on the player. I like that idea. That was different. But for the most part, I've got to get out of the reviewing media host company because otherwise I'll end up with 75 different podcasts. I can't do that. And I'm just kind of like, I guess here's the thing. If somebody came out and it's the new show, it's the new car from Sweden. You know, it's the Svenmobile, and it's great, and it's blue, and it's short, and it gets 72 miles to the gallon. It's the Svenmobile, but it's the first time they've come to America. The company's been in business for 2 years. Are you going to drive your kid to school in that? It's like, are you going to be an early adopter? You can, by all means. Doesn't mean you're wrong, but if there's something really wrong, remember what was the thing from Mexico? There was a car from Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And it did not last long because they weren't great. They were really cheap.
But would Tesla did that? Would you drive a Tesla for sure, right? And they came out of nowhere and started making cars.
But here's the thing: Tesla's the direct. These are all like super cheap. Look, it's from Mexico. It's these.
Tesla was
where
expensive.
Tesla's like it's really expensive and it's electric and it's cool and it goes 0 to 60 in blink of an eye. Yugo, that was it.
No, that wasn't
Yugo.
from Mexico. That Yugo was
No.
from Yugoslavia.
Yeah,
The former Yugoslavia.
So I guess my point is, if there's a new hosting company come out, they've got to meet my criteria. I am a little more lenient on the. I used to have to say you can't change my file name, but so many of these things now are hey, dynamic ad insertion. You can make money from day one. That's right. You can make, and I just checked 0.00209 on my last dynamic ad campaign on Voxnest, and they all use the same people. It's that one company that begins with a T. I forget the name of it. That's behind the scenes. That's selling all the ads.
They were at Podcast Movement. They had a booth.
Yeah. So it's just a case because I just saw where Spreaker came out with like Spreaker Prime or something, and I think that's more which is their kind of private. That's the other thing. It is kind of slowly taking off. Private podcasts for like your business. And like I know Libsyn has that. And not only can you have a private podcast, but I can see that Earl has missed the last 2 episodes. So, And then Emily says this, that there were a ton of articles about this, about Spotify's new start a podcast button. All it does is lead you to Anchor. Yeah. I'm just like, that's going to have to be addressed eventually, because I don't want to go on an Anchor rant, but it's just going to create more litter. And I'm like, eventually somebody's going to have to come up with an algorithm that if you haven't had a single download in 60 to 90 days, your show gets pulled because you suck. Nobody's listening. And obviously you're not promoting it.
90 days is too short. There are people who make great podcasts once a quarter. And
yeah, but if it's a great podcast,
that's true. That would fit. But Dave, it's still too that's okay. I'm not calling you an elitist, but that idea is fairly elitist. Like it's kind of like that leans towards the weekly or the monthly, even quarterly in this case. But like you should be allowed, I should be allowed to make a podcast 6 months later, update it. Like we say this all the time in podcasting. Like you can do whatever you want, but you just said, I'm not calling you an elitist, but you just said, as long as it's 90 days, that sounds like a restriction to me, right?
Are you biting your thumb at me?
No. You good, sir. Good day.
No, that's the thing. That's the other thing. There is podcasting has no rules.
Yeah. Except 90 days. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I get what drives you crazy about this because people just create them and then they just sit out there and they just kind of clog up the system. And I totally get that. But in a completely open system, you're going to have those kinds of things happen. It's just part of the cost of doing business. Well,
Mike says, who's going to start this is a great podcast list. And that's really, I thought that's what I can't think of it. The place that you pay that was going to be the Netflix of podcasting, yellow logo. All the big shot.
Luminary?
I thought that's what Luminary was going to be. Like, hey, here's a list of good podcasts.
Well, Podcast One Doesn't Podcast One want to be that too, where they have
Everybody wants,
the best
shows.
curated, whatever. I mean,
They might. Is there a Podcast One app?
Yeah.
I would think.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Launchpad is a direct result of them trying to discover new shows to bring onto Podcast One. That's the whole reason that thing is out there. I mean, they told me flat out it's a marketing. They're hoping to break even on it so that they'll use this to discover new shows. And so okay, that's their. But in these free podcasting spaces, it's gonna create a ton of clutter. I think. We just need to learn how to deal with the clutter much less, or no.
That's it. I had
Just
a guy
deal with the clutter.
this week at Libsyn, and I want to say his show was something like Immigrantly. It was some sort of immigrant and then a word, immigrant aegis or whatever it was, but it was a word. And he said, I type in that word, which isn't really a word, and my show still doesn't show up. I said, because it has the word immigrant in the word immigrant, whatever it is. And I go, and I said, there's no other way to put this. Apple search is horrendous. And get that link and put it on your website. And, it's like, I know you don't like this answer. I don't like this answer, but it is what it is. And
search is never the answer, by the way. Search is never the answer to any of these things. You're not people. You're gonna have such a low percentage. It's going to be a lower percentage than what you're making in dynamic ad insertion on Spreaker of people just looking for things and finding it. It's just not the right way.
Yeah, Mike says I do something similar, but waste a ton of time trying to get the format right in Libsyn and on my WordPress site. What I want to ask.
I think we missed. I think we must have missed a comment up above. Yeah. We've had so many things going on in the chat room this morning.
Yeah. Mike says saying Apple search is horrendous is being kind. It is. It's really, and then somebody asked me today, and I had to verify this. She had a show in Christianity, and there's definitely a religion subcategory Christianity. And I went into the app and I went into iTunes, and there's no place you can see the subcategories, which kind of makes me want to go, why do we have subcategories? But I'm kind of glad, because so many people think that people are going in and going, let me see religion, Christianity, Buddhist, or whatever, sports, football. And if the subcategories don't exist, that whole argument goes out the window. Yeah. It also makes you want to go, why am I picking a subcategory then? But I was kind of like, really? They're not there? And I went in, I'm like, not that I can find. So it really is going to boil down to having the link on your website and, go that route.
I think it's going to be the folks who do it the best are those who pay for it. Like that's always the way it is. Like, yeah, word of mouth is great. And, you can do it. Actually, word of mouth is incredible. That's really the best way, right? But to get scalable promotion, you got to buy it. You got to pay for it. You got to drive it to people, not them to drive them to you.
Andrea, who does talkabouttalk.com, is this major big shot smarty pants doctorate person, and she did her what do you do to get a doctorate? Not a thesis, it's a doctoration, maybe?
No, a dissertation.
Dissertation. Thank you. On word of mouth. And she mentioned that in my last show, and I reached out. I said, can we get on the phone and do a quick chin wag, like a little pre-interview? And yeah, she's definitely coming back, and we're going to have the 5 points that lead to people doing word of mouth. Kim says, is social media search option good?
Is any
better
social
than Apple?
Media, any social media search option good?
That's true. That's why there's almost always an advanced search. I know Twitter.
It's a really good question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Pedro says, would you book a guest for a show that speaks broken English? I have a guest who wants to be on my show, and he's from Germany. We both speak broken English because he's the Stuttering Podcast. Anybody I don't know. I always say I would love to have you on my show, but because I've never met you, I reserve the right to not publish our episode. If you're okay with that, I'll be happy to have you on. But that way, if they come on and just drop a giant turd, I can go, yeah, that's not really going to resonate with my audience. I appreciate your time. And,
But if he already knows this person, say he does, and he's heard him and talked to him before, but the English is broken, I think the heart of his question is for English speaking, or in this case, English listening people, would they be opposed to someone who spoke broken English? I don't think so. I think if the content is good, people will forgive a variety of things. And one of them is how you speak. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't hesitate just because now if you can't understand it at all, that's
the
something.
level.
But if you can understand it and you're an English speaker, chances are it's good enough. I would.
Yeah, there's that level. Like there's the person with the Russian accent that vodka. And you don't have to, but you can still understand it. And that was a horrible Russian accent, by the way.
But it but it may be actually having an accent may pay off in your podcast in some regards because Americans really love accents. So,
but when like I know I hear a couple shows from Scotland, and the brogue is so thick that I'm like, whoa, we got to go to 1x, if not below that. And when I have to focus so much on what they're saying, I'm like, I'm out. Nothing against their content. It just takes too much effort to do that. So,
well, he says he doesn't know them. So I think you need to do what Dave said. Is that call them and make sure they're understandable, or do a test call first. Have a conversation, call it a pre-show, right? Hey, we need to, or we need to do a pre-call,
pre-interview.
Yeah. And
in his case, he's going to be German stutterer because that's the show, My Stuttering Life. So that's going to be the other thing.
Yeah. If you're the host and you can understand it, chances are you're going to be okay. But if you're constantly struggling as the host to really understand their questions, probably say, this probably is not a great idea for my audience. The other thing you could do on this, say it's still really good, but their accent is super thick or it's really hard to understand, is you can embed subtitles like that. You're going to spend a whole bunch of more time on it, but if it's good enough, you could embed subtitles for that podcast to help the listener
for the video.
For the video. Yeah. For the video. Yeah.
So
sure.
If it's an audio podcast,
really tough to do that. Just audio only. Sorry. I always assume video as well because I'm video first.
Yeah. Daniel says most of the subcategories have a trending section inside the top level category. I was surprised that in the app you have to scroll left and right. And if you didn't notice that there's more things kind of off the screen. But yeah, religion and spirituality, it doesn't have those trending sections. So I'll have to dig more into that. But I don't care what my category is. Maybe that's wrong. It probably is wrong. I mean, I'm not in like kids and science. I'm in whatever education or technology, but I just don't know that there are a lot of people because I can't find it. Like, well, here, let's pull this up.
I'm just going to say Apple is anti-religion. I proved it right here. We just proved it. Anti-religion.
So if I go into Apple Podcasts and go into search or browse, there's it's your typical stuff. Oh, and there's our favorite section, new and noteworthy, which is, fantasy footballs. Then there's curated collections and then browse by category. So if I go let's go into sports because there were a ton of those. If I go into sports, top shows at the top, new shows, soccer. Okay. So there are subcategories, but not in the religion one. That is odd. So there's football, baseball, hockey. That's it. That's kind of interesting. Let me just go back a second. Business, society and culture, kids and family, education, news, religion and spirituality, top shows, new shows, long running.
They did that on purpose. Not because they're anti-religion. I was just joking about that. But maybe they did that. Maybe there's a reason they did that where they don't want to. I mean, Apple, they got some of the weirdest. I mean, this whole category subcategorization change is kind of botched. It's not that great. Yeah. Like they really missed the boat on this one. They could have done so much better and so much more. I feel like Intern did it on a weekend.
Because they're in on everything else. Every other category has a subcategory. So there you see, that's because to me, I was making a blatant statement. They don't have subcategories in Apple anymore. And I was like, that's odd that this is the things where I wish there was an Apple person we could go. But like even Google's, if you have,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, even if you have somebody, they can't talk on the record about anything. And I'm like, well, that's stupid.
No, they don't. They're crazy. Google's really going to make a run at this. Like they were at Podcast Movement. They are the fact that they were there and they got some resources and some real people. They're going to make a real run at trying to fix this discovery search and discovery process on Google and serve up these podcasts. Yeah.
I got a question. I can email Daryl.
Yeah. So they we'll see if they've got the kind of the intestinal fortitude to stick with it. This has been the problem in the past, right? They've started down these paths and then they get disinterested and move on to some other googly thing that seems, maybe buy Nest or something like that. But it is important to know. I think they're going to make a real run at search and see if they can figure out how to do this and do some work with the transcripts. That's I think the most important part is they're going to do transcripts behind the scenes and then try and serve some things up that way
for the search.
Yeah. Which makes me think I need to speak really clear in my podcast from now on.
Yeah. Daniel says Apple will probably also use your primary category for the related recommendations. So for example, only the baseball podcasts would be recommended on baseball podcast listening. Let's hope so. But that is something that was new that came out. They said they're now, I don't know if it's on all shows, but they are doing transcription searches behind the scenes, which should help their search because, as we've already mentioned, Apple search is horrendous. And then Kim says, I'm not joking. Apple is not friendly to religious beliefs. So
I didn't say that, but it's probably true.
Yeah. And then she says, Apple Podcast isn't free. It's part of the package you buy with your equipment. That's true. Can't get Apple Podcasts on an Android yet. Of course, we've been saying yet for 15
but they had a
years.
Windows version for a while. Yeah, not doubting it. Not doubting.
Well, it's true. There is an Apple. I mean, it's called iTunes on the Windows side. It's just a horrendous piece of software.
Okay, so I heard your boss, Rob, say it's not a podcast unless it's in Apple Podcasts. Is that from him? Is that a direct?
That is his opinion. Yeah, and the reason for that is because, according to Rob, this is Rob's opinion, because of he always calls it shifted jelly Pocket Cast. I'm like, is that different from Pocket Cast and Overcast and a lot of these other apps that pull from the back end that if you really want to, and I was like, oh, that's because people go, well, Apple only has 58% of the audience. They're like, when you add up Overcast and Pocket Cast and everywhere a cast and blah, all these, even Castbox pulled from the back end of Apple, I think.
Yeah.
So, that's where it adds up to where it's like,
Okay.
So
I heard that statement back to last week when we kind of said, can we stop like this RSS madness? And then I heard that phrase and I'm like, seriously? Are we getting to the point where adding Apple Podcasts into the thing as well? Anyways, I wanted to get some clarification on that.
Do you remember what was her name? Susan Powder? Remember Stop the Madness? You don't remember that?
No.
She was a fitness guru and it was an infomercial and she'd be like, stop the madness. That was like her catchphrase. So
well, we just around podcast movement, we just got so crazy about RSS feeds. I said, come on, people. But anyways, okay. We won't relive that. Go back to last week's post show.
Yeah. Dan says, does that mean if I make a movie, but it doesn't get distributed by Netflix, that it's not really a movie? See, some might say if it never was in a theater, then it wasn't.
That's what I was going to say. Like if it's not distributed, like is a movie directly distributed to DVD still a movie? Because a lot of them do that especially the cartoons, right? They come out like we got crap on our hands. Let's just go right to DVD. Is it really a movie?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Saturday Night Live movies. Like Ask Pat was a movie that went straight to DVD. And that's when I see that, I'm like, well, there's a movie I'm not going to watch.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Emily, of course, knows it. Stop the insanity.
Maybe she can do a story behind that for you.
And Troy says, when using Restream.io with StreamYard, can you see the comments for both YouTube and Facebook? I can, Jim can't. Or can you see no comments at all and pull them on the screen? So Jim can't only see YouTube. In this case, Troy's on Facebook. So that's the.
But I could go to the video. Like I could go to all the places where the chat is going on. The 8,000, not really. But I could go to the different places and participate there. That's all I'm doing on YouTube, right? I go to the YouTube video and pull the chat from there. I could go on Facebook and grab that if I want. It sounds like we may be getting unified chat for the co-hosts as well in StreamYard coming soon.
Coming soon, yes. And Pedro says, yes, it was Stop the Madness. Susan, I want to say her name was either Susan Power or Susan Powder, but he's right. She did have platinum blonde hair. She weighed about 54 pounds and needed to eat a sandwich. I remember it's one of those where it's like, when I can see your collarbone and your ribs, I'm like, you need a sandwich. So that's always kind of fun. But the fun thing I'm really looking forward to about FinCon is I'm going to have to get out of aside from Steve Stewart and Joe Salsi High, I'm going to have a whole bunch of new people to meet. So I'm going to have to bust out of my shell.
Comfort zone.
Yeah. And then the military influencer thing, I'll have Chris there and one of my clients is there, but I'm like, this is going to be different because, it's like I'm not going to walk into a room and know everybody.
Oh, they'll know you. You'll be fine. They'll know you. People will come up to you. Throw out Michael Delaney's comment in there real quick. This is a really good this is a really good concept. So Michael says podcasts need their own place. Podcasts need their own place where these podcatchers can pull from. We don't need to dump, maybe from holding all of our stuff in their apps. Yeah. So who would do that? Like this is always a great idea. Like, oh, we need kind of a unified space. Emily's here. Hold on, Emily, 1 second. So we always need we always want that, but there has to be a financial incentive in place for someone to actually do that. And I don't know, everybody's got an agenda. So if Google does it, they have an agenda. So who kind of does that? We'll come back to that question, but Emily, welcome.
Hi. I wanted to come in and say hi.
So good to see you.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling better. Thank you.
Yes. Emily got knocked in the head by her 2-year-old with a
wooden car wash.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's in my office now.
This is mine now.
Wait a minute. A little weird. You could just grab that.
Because it's one of those things when I explain it to people, I know I need the visuals. So I'm sorry for audio listeners. It is a Melissa and Doug, if you know those toys, wooden solid car wash that my kid just dropped on my head while I was doing yoga.
Full scale concussion?
Not full scale. I didn't have to really go to the hospital. I went to the walk-in like 3 days later to make sure. But I was in the dark. Podcasters who use compression, thank you. Love it. So that I could listen to a podcast and not worry about like the very loud sounds.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Oh my God. I need to write a column or something about, tips for podcasters for your audience who has concussions. Please compress. Please.
Well, and Evo Terra put out an episode because Evo he has hearing issues. Let's go that route. And he said, so these narrative style, Welcome to Nightville kind of, where they have the very quiet part because we're going to do this. And then, dun, 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 and he goes, that kills people. He goes, because either A, I can't hear it because my volume's already all the way up. And so, that's another great point there. So, and I got to say, I haven't seen you in probably 3 weeks online. Every time I see you, I'm like, wow, she just keeps getting smaller.
Thank you.
I was going to say, you're looking great.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, that is because of my podcast, actually, because of Hate to Wait. Yes.
I was going to send you an email. Do you remember what episode you guys announced you lost 100 pounds combined? Because I wanted to grab that sound bite.
I will send that to you. I'll send you that sound bite for you because right now we're at 103. Actually, I can look at my little sheet to tell you exactly how much weight we lost on which episode. So it was episode 62, in fact.
Well, whatever you're losing, Dave and I are gaining.
That's it. They just keep handing it to me. Here's another 5 pounds. Thank you. I'll just put that right there. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to show you guys a cool little trick that have you guys seen Biotine yet? Anything from Biotine?
No. Hold on. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Now that I know how to do this, hold that back up
to the
camera.
Okay. So Biotine is my new favorite thing. If you have a lot of mouth clicks, it comes in a gel. There's a mouthwash. There's a toothpaste, but it's for dry mouth. So actually what you do is you spray it and kind of swish it around in your mouth, at least with the spray. And the mouth clicks are virtually gone. I actually want to do an Isotope RX mouth click comparison to see before and after you use it. It's pretty great.
All right. Do you have an affiliate link?
I don't, but you can throw yours on there.
/Biotine. Where do you get it?
No. I actually found this in the grocery store, just in the with all the toothpaste and stuff. And this I got from my dentist, which is how I first heard about it. And he was like, oh, you're a podcaster? And we started talking about all the stuff I do. And I was like, oh, and it takes out mouth clicks. And he runs and he goes and gets the sample. He's like, you got to try this.
Does it foam in your mouth?
No, it's a very weird. It's like,
it's a gel?
Yeah, it's like a sports gel that you just like and then
Interesting.
swish around.
What's it for? Like, what's the original purpose?
Dry mouth. If you have chronic dry mouth, that's why my dentist gave it to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's like, so if you're in a state where they're prescribing medical marijuana, here's
I
your
was going to
pot.
say, yeah, a lot of medications give you dry mouth, and people and they're supposed to drink water, and it's really water and glycerin and some flavoring to make it sweet enough. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I've recommended it to a few clients who are worried about their mouth clicks, and I'm like, I take that out anyway, but if you want.
I wonder
There
how
you go.
much mouthwash in general, like a Listerine or any of those. There's one that's having trouble
Wouldn't those
remembering.
dry your mouth out though?
I don't
That-
know. I mean, so
Yeah.
for me, I use one in the morning. So I get up. That's the first thing I do is rinse. And it's such a refreshing kind of clear out, like, and it just gets rid of some of that stuff, that gunky stuff that makes those mouth noises that you do on this. It doesn't help. I drink coffee, but it's got plenty of milk in there, right? This is a latte. I do 2 of them here. I have to really work hard not to, and you hear me kind of, during the show sometimes, but I'm wondering maybe some of those mouthwashes might help too. I don't know. I have to start thinking like, okay, how does this feel after I'm done? And I wonder if rinsing with something like that might be helpful too.
Yeah, I don't know. Kim is saying in the chat room that public speakers use this stuff all the time, the Biotene.
Yeah, Peroxyl is the one I was thinking of. Peroxyl is a hydrogen peroxide based mouthwash that is really meant for sore gums and sores inside, but it does a really good job with everything. And man, when I am done, that in the mornings, that's the first morning thing I do. And you're like, you're ready to go for the day. So Emily, that's a good point. So I'm gonna pay attention in the mornings when I do this from here, and I'm gonna see, because I swish, right, and then not long after that, I'm kind of eating breakfast and doing my morning stuff on my way to work. So I have to see in that in between time, am I getting the same noises?
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because I'm one of those, I like to brush my teeth before recording just so that you have a nice clean, I don't know, blank slate in my mouth. So
Yeah. I just think it perks you up a little bit, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like you're like, ooh, fresh mintiness.
Yeah.
You're like, this is great.
yeah.
Yeah. Kim says, oops, if you can find a rinse that encourages natural moisturing, that's best for
Moisturizing,
moisturizing. Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about green apples in the chat room, that people say that green apples are supposed to help with mouth clicks and such.
Yeah, I remember that in theater though, and we would have green apples out just for that reason. But the thing is, you would have to refresh yourself in the middle of the acts because it would wear off after a while.
So all of a sudden, in the middle of,
You see all
whatever.
these actors just running for the apples
in the
down-
back,
Yeah.
this is
And then
very
they got
quiet.
apple chunks down here. Emily, how long is that last for, do you think?
This one says
Yeah.
4 hours.
Oh.
This one was significantly about the gel. I'm sorry, the spray was about 4. It says up to 4 hours. The gel for me, I was talking nonstop for about 20 minutes doing an episode, and I was still going after that. I could have still kept talking, and it would have been fine.
And is it just Biotene, or how do you spell it?
Biotene.
go.
Biotene.
I like a good crisp lager. That's my favorite. Just keep Thursday nights. That way you don't know. By the time you had a few of those, you have no idea if you have dry mouth or not. You don't
No.
really care. Yeah.
You don't go, I got dry mouth. I got to drink some more.
You're just trying to think.
Well, that was when I was doing the wine and cheese show, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
really how we would get so drunk so fast, is because
Uh-huh.
oh man, we keep talking and our mouths are dry, and
Yeah.
let's just keep drinking the wine, and then 40 minutes later a bottle's
Yeah.
gone. So.
Yeah, a good red, not a good one to have for a podcast, because you will just keep drinking it.
No, yeah,
I've done that before, and then I've spilled it twice.
that's
Yes.
right, your mixer.
How many mixers have you lost? Thanks to 2. Yeah. See,
Two
I
really
think-
good reds. Yeah.
I think that's where you kind of go, yeah, it's time to
Well,
find a new place.
Sarah's bought all kinds of different kinds of drinking utensil for me down here, just so I'd stop doing that. The flat, wide things
they-
you can't spill, sippy cups.
They make these clamps that fit on mic stands that you can then put a beer in. So I'm assuming you could somehow.
How great would that
No.
be right here with us?
Oh yeah, they should do that in a band.
Stop.
I get a.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
I thought it was really for one of those beer hangout podcasts that they actually had it for your boom arm or something. And I was like, that's terrible.
No, they make them. It's like
my
they have some that you just clamp onto anything, and then a swirly gig, I think was the name of it. And it was this little thing, and you could put a beer bottle in it. So and then it would somehow clamp onto your mic stand. I had a bunch of things on my mic. I had a pick guard, I had a swirly gig, and then I had something that I could clip the set list to, because it was always hilarious. They would type up a set list in like 14 font thinking it was big, but by the time you put that on the floor, you're like, I can't read that. So my whole, shades of Steven Tyler and all of his scarves, I have all these things clamped to my mic stand so I could
It's
see
a great
what was going
idea
on.
though, by a beer holder, right? Like right here. I could
All right, hold on. Let me go to Amazon. I think if I'm
block
gonna,
my
I'm gonna,
face though, so maybe.
I'm reading. I wonder how many mics get destroyed by that thing.
yeah.
Well, it's
here
like
we,
the hats that got the beer on this side, and then it's got the things that come around. One
Yeah.
for your mics. Oh, there you go. Boom.
swirly gig.
Oh, good
$11.
Lord.
And look at this one. You've got a thing for a beer bottle, and then like a little desk here for it.
Yeah, right on.
Here's a yeah.
I'm
Here's
in.
one with a koozie. All sorts of fun stuff.
We
you
need
can,
so we do beer conversations in the pre-show for Home Gadget Geeks. I should get one of these that just clamps on, and so what you're drinking, so the beer we're drinking tonight, put it
see
up
this
there.
one's for stemware. So if you've got a wine glass, that you can just
Oh,
You can stick a
So-
wine glass in your microphone holder. Just take out the mic and just stick it right in there.
look at all these weird things you can clamp on a mic stand. That's hilarious.
you said that with such conviction. That was so good. You can totally just
You
put
can
a mic
Yeah,
glass in there.
I think that's interesting.
That's what I
Yeah.
did when I got my ATR 2100 and they give you that tiny stand.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what am I going to use this for? Holding my wine.
There you go. Nice. All right. Well,
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm off to go get a haircut. So
Go.
because I said, I
Happy
don't
day.
have enough on my plate. Let's what else can I do? I'm like, let's get a haircut. And a follow-up. Friday the 13th, I will be finally going to the doctor to get my blood pressure taken care of, because
Oh, good.
they wanted to see me next week, and they're like that, and we're going to talk colonoscopy, because I haven't had one of those yet. So it was funny because the doctor I'm going to,
Oh yeah, I got to do that too.
that's her
Oh.
specialty. And I go, hey, my brother, my sister-in-law are your patients, and they recommend you highly. I moved back from Cleveland to Akron. I need a doctor. And they're like, oh, we're not really taking anybody unless you need a colonoscopy. And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact. So that'll be in my future. That'll be another great Building a Better Dave episode, I'm sure. Maybe I'll record the whole thing and release it no, maybe not.
I love how
So-
close we get to our podcast hosts we love, and we know these things.
Yeah, thanks.
Now,
So-
every 5 years, I'll send you guys reminders. Hey, you guys,
I know.
colonoscopy
That's
time.
That time,
Yeah.
I've been avoiding it for a whole year. I need to get
Yeah.
it scheduled.
Well,
Yikes.
I'm way over, and then throw on top of it, my dad had colon cancer. That's like another red
yeah.
flag.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like you should have had this in your 40s, and I'm like,
You should, Dave.
I
We
just
want
try
you
not to-
around for a while, my friend.
Yeah.
We want you around.
I
for a
try
while.
not to party that hard, so
Mm.
but anyway, so no show next week. I'll be in
Okay,
DC,
yeah.
and I'll be back with tons of stories, hopefully from.
Emily, so great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I
guys.
missed you. We missed you, Podcast Movement.
I know. I was so sad I couldn't go, but it works out because right now for me, it's like crazy podcast conferences coming up. So yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
you-
just wanted you to be at one that I was at. I don't care.
I know, Jim. I will. I'll see
I
you.
don't care about it. I came just for you, and then you went there.
You did
but
not.
it's
Stop
okay.
that. Stop that.
All right, friends. Emily,
All right.
great seeing you. See you, Dave. We'll see you in 2
Bye.
weeks.
See ya.
Peace.
Bye.